Everyone, and welcome to Blue Sunday here on In the Blue Corner channel. Vince Lochisano with you, joined by Steve Katib. Good evening to you, Stephen.
Evening, Vince. How are you?
Not bad for a Carlton supporter. A big win yesterday by the Blues over Fremantle, and I think we've proven beyond any doubt that we are a very different outfit this year compared to, well, not only last year, but quite a number of years before that. So we finally seem to have turned the corner and beaten a really good quality team who knocked off Melbourne and Brisbane in recent weeks. And, we certainly turned the tide on them after their, I think it was a 6-goal win against us over in Perth. And we seem to have turned the table and beaten them by 31 points yesterday. So a big win in front of the home crowd.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a really good win considering the personnel that were missing from a defensive perspective. I think we spoke about it last week that that Fremantle would challenge Carlton with their forwards, or that was my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
Look, early in the game, certainly Carlton were behind, but in the end, really. Fremantle failed to score significantly at all after quarter time, and it was a very good performance.
It certainly was, and if you're out there watching us at the moment and you'd like to take part in tonight's show, whether it be you want to express your feelings or you want to pass a comment or ask a question, we would certainly welcome your participation, and you can do that in one of a couple of ways. Either go onto our Facebook page, In the Blue Corner, and leave us a comment or a question on that Facebook page, or otherwise go to YouTube and do the same thing. So we'll certainly address any of the questions that come up and put up on screen any relevant comments that are worth a mention on the screen. All right. Well, I guess we should just quickly go over the game, shouldn't we, Steve? It was a really comprehensive win, I think you'd have to say, wouldn't you? 12-9-81 to 7-8-50, 21 shots to 15. It was a pretty tight game for the majority of it, but once we just pulled away by a couple of goals there in that third quarter, you could just tell that the dam walls was about to collapse, and I think we kicked 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah, that's right. That was really where Fremantle had come back. I think they got back to within maybe was it 8 points or thereabouts. But
in the third quarter,
yeah, that's right. And then the Blues just pulled away towards the end of the game, and Fremantle didn't really have any answers.
Yeah, they didn't. And I think it was just a really steely resolve on behalf of our midfield. I think they went to work during the week. They realised that they'd been down in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they really did make up for that yesterday. I think they were by far the better midfield, and that's what helped us to kick a winning score. Even though it wasn't a huge score, 12-9-81, we certainly restricted them in a massive way, 7-8-50, and our defence has held up yet again.
Yeah, that's right. And as I said earlier, the personnel,
despite the injuries to key position players.
Yeah, I mean, the defence did hold up. I suppose were they really tested? Probably not as much, right? The midfield probably dominated, and that's what had been lacking for previous weeks. I thought. The lack of dominance in the midfield. Possession, yeah, sure, possessions, but actual dominance of controlling the game, probably not. I think that's probably where the main difference was.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think when you have a look at the quarter-by-quarter scores, they got off to a reasonably good start. First quarter, 3 goals, straight 18 before we scored one. But we finished with 1-3-9. So a 9-point deficit at quarter time wouldn't have been pleasing Michael Voss too much, but then again, no need for panic. We certainly took charge in the second quarter and ended up scoring 5 goals, 2 to only 1 goal, 2 in the second quarter, and went into half-time with a nice 15-point lead. And, 41 to 26. And we were looking at that stage by far the better side. And the challenge was thrown out to them to see if they could come back, but they didn't have the answers. Yeah. The third quarter, 3 goals, 2 to us, 2 goals, 3 to them. So reasonably even, but again, we expanded on our lead. Ended up being 20 points up at three-quarter time. And in the last quarter, we pulled away again. 3 goals, 2 to 1 goal, 3. So again, 20 to 9 for the quarter. So another 11 points added to that 20-point lead at three-quarter time to win by 31. So we progressively got better after quarter time and just continued to build the lead. That was the really good part about the performance. It was, I guess you wouldn't call it a total 4-quarter performance because their first quarter was probably a bit better than ours, but we could have been up with them if it wasn't for some inaccurate kicking for goal. But after we conceded the first 3 goals of the game, we after that scored 12 goals to 4.
I'd argue to say that thus far, it probably was the best performance of the season. We're not talking about scintillating football or anything of that nature. It's purely more the way the team went about it. As I said, considering personnel were missing, but more importantly, the top 4 team.
Yeah,
I mean, being a top 4 team, playing a top 4 team in a game really meant a lot. Had we lost, we'd be nearly 8th or thereabouts, dropping right back to the pack. So it was very, very important. Yeah.
You know how you get these apps that show you the various points that each player's got for the game and all that? Well, I'm just having a look at the Footy Live app, and of the top, is it 11? The top 11 players on the ground in terms of ranking points, 10 of them were Carlton players. The only exception was Will Brodie, number 17 from Fremantle. He was 3rd on the list. But up the top was Doherty with 121, Walsh with 120. Then, as I said, Brodie with 117, Fisher 108, Hewitt 95, Jack Nunes, big game for him in his 200th, 94, including a goal. Jack Silvani, he really played a great game, took 10 marks for the game. He had 93 points. O'Brien, bit of a surprise packet, kicked a couple of goals, 89 points. Adam Sard, again, continuing his brilliant form, 28 possessions, ended up with 87 points. And Patrick Cripps finished with 86. And Matthew Kennedy with 85. You know, we by far and away had the better 4-quarter players on the ground.
Absolutely. Very, very consistent, even team effort, I would have thought.
Indeed. All right. Well, is there anything that you saw there that you didn't like specifically? Or was it all upside?
Oh, no, it was all positive. I mean, I think there's really not much that you can take out of any negatives to take out of that game for mine. I don't know about yourself, Vince.
Yeah, look, I mean, look, you could probably say there was a couple of quietish players who only had maybe a handful of possessions, like Corey Durden. Sorry, he had 9. Sorry, who am I looking at? Corey Durden had 6 kicks. Josh Honey came back into the side for the first time in quite a long time, so he only had 2 kicks. Total of 9 possessions. And young Motlop only had the 4 kicks and a total of 5 possessions, but at least he laid 5 tackles. So, yeah, if you want to be, super critical, there's a couple that were a little quiet.
You're mentioning, let's be honest, you're mentioning fringe players or first-year players. You're not expecting, not expecting a lot from those players, really.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's fair enough. But look, overall, I see Brad Turner's on tonight. TDK was brilliant. Yeah, I thought he'd stood up really well. And, one of the big dangers for us was the ruckman, Sean Darcy. Now, while Darcy had 35 hit-outs and and TDK had a total of 22. I think he certainly stood up around the ground and more than matched him.
Yeah, that was always going to be the challenge, right? Darcy's been, one of the better one of the premier ruckmans really in the competition, and for a young ruckman, probably undersized compared to Darcy, although most ruckmen are. He did very, very well, but more importantly, around the ground, he's sort of got that ruck rover ruckman-esque. Matthew Cruiser sort of can follow the ball and can also impact around the ground than purely just being a centre bounce ruckman. He's more than that. So he's bringing a lot more to his game now, which is really pleasing to see him develop.
Yeah, I think he's more of a follower, as they used to refer to the ruckman in the true sense of the word. He follows the ball around the ground, and I think he did really well. Richard Hussein over in the sand pit in Dubai. Great to see you, Rich. What about Dow? Do we think he is done at Carlton? Keen to hear your thoughts.
Well, he was best on ground against Coburg in the VFL. Carlton's was it 4-point win over Coburg?
Very underwhelming 4-point win over Coburg.
What is it? The Sydney Road.
Was that on Saturday night or something? Was that a night match icon?
Yeah, I think that was the Battle of Sydney Road or something. Well, I don't know whatever you want to call it.
The Battle of Sydney Road.
Yeah. North Sydney
Royal
Road.
Parade versus Sydney Road. Anyway.
Wow, one block away from Royal Parade. Although real estate agents try and have South Brunswick as Parkville in their zoning, but anyway, you know what I mean. Anyway, look, I think he was really good, and I think
the question was, is he done? Are we not playing him? Rich wants to know. Do we think he's done and dusted? He's got no future at Carlton, or do we think he's just got to keep playing well in the VFL and eventually his chance will come?
Well, they brought him back for what, 2 games? Was that
one?
One
game.
Well, I mean, really? Or was that was against Collingwood?
Yeah,
I think it was. Okay, so was he poor in that?
And our midfield got beaten that day.
He was reasonable in that game.
Well, he got 20 possessions. I'm not sure. I don't think he was brilliant. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it's not that simple just to come back in.
But they did drop him the very next week when I'm trying to think of who was out at the time. Might have been Matthew Kennedy came back into the side.
So what they either see him as a certain type of player, and they're only going to play him as a second option if that player is missing.
Well, it looks like they're only playing him when midfielders are out injured or for whatever reason. So he's not in the preferred first 5 or 6 midfielders, clearly.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you've got Cripps, you've got Walsh, you've got Hewitt and Chera, you've got Kennedy, and then you've got others that are sort of rotating in and out of there. A little bit of Zach Fisher, a little bit of, Lockie O'Brien, etc., although he tends to play on the wing. So you've got other players that are coming in and out of there, but Dow seems to be only an option if we've got no other option.
He can also play half-back too. It's not just purely a midfielder. So...
do you think so? Really? Paddy Dow?
I think he can play half-back or half-forward. I don't think he can. He's just purely a midfielder. That's my view. To answer the question, is he gone? Oh, well, to get currency, they've signed him for another year. So does that mean,
I wouldn't mind betting that Paddy Dow is traded at the end of the year. And the reason for that is because I don't think he fits within our system. I don't think he's the type of midfielder that Voss necessarily is looking for. And I think maybe even best for club and for player that it's maybe best for him as well to find greener pastures elsewhere and maybe get more opportunity elsewhere.
When you mean the type of midfielder, are you talking about it's all about the clearances and inside footy and all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, I just don't think he plays the game as a midfielder in the manner that Voss wants. He seems to be preferring your you go in and get it type midfielders like Hewitt, like Chera, like Walsh and Cripps, etc. So the hard at it clearance type players. I'm not sure that Dow really fits into that.
So I'll challenge you on that. Well, not you. You're giving me the club's. You're giving me what you think the club thinks, right?
Well, so, I'm trying to read the tea leaves here. I'm trying to look
so
into what the club or what our coaching and selection staff, selection committee are thinking when it comes to Paddy Dow.
So is it just about
his VFL form would suggest that he should have had a lot more than just the one game this year.
Correct.
For some reason, they are resisting playing him unless they have no other option.
So do you have a team of inside midfielders and all bulls? You need a mixture, right?
Yes, of course.
Blend, and it's not just about having clearance players. You have that blend of outside spread, and inside win, and a little bit of both, depending. That would be a blend of player.
The fact that they have even chosen, and with some success, to stick with players like Jack Nunes and Matthew Cottrell, etc., on those wings, tells me that they want a faster, more hard-at-it type midfielder than what Paddy Dow is. I think they might perceive him as a bit soft, okay, and not in the style of midfielder or even outside midfielder that they're looking for.
Maybe
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lockie O'Brien has done something right in the eyes of Michael Voss and the selection committee, because he seems to have kept his spot in the team and he's starting to play with some real confidence now. He kicked a couple of goals yesterday. I think he's got a far better chance of staying in this team than what Paddy Dow is at the moment.
If you play Dow like you played O'Brien, I know this is a little hypothetical, but surely you'd think just purely having consistent football under your belt would allow you to improve, opposed to being just, being boxed into not being the player that they want.
Let me ask you this. If you bring Paddy Dow in and you've got all of those other midfielders available, who are you going to leave out?
Oh, look, at the moment, we've got a high balance of inside midfielders and it's working for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's. Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah. So who are you going to leave out? If you're trying to say why should Paddy Dow miss out week after week after he's playing so well in the VFL, who are you going to drop? Because you literally have to drop someone unless they're injured.
Agreed.
So who are you going to drop in favour of Paddy Dow?
The coaching style's working at the moment. And who was anyone to criticise because the team's one game, right? Let's be honest. Everybody watching this will say, you think you can coach the team, you're crazy. Yeah. I'm not saying I can coach the team. What I'm saying, though, is if that style were to change or that style wasn't to work, you would need more outside players. You couldn't just have all inside players. To answer your question, who would you leave out? Kennedy and Hewitt are similar types of players. Cripps is probably showing that he can kick goals now as well. But he's an inside player that can play a bit on the out, but more on the in. Oh, look, it's a difficult question.
I like the way you're dancing around my question like a politician. So who are you going to leave out?
At the moment, no. But if things change,
exactly. So that's what they're doing. They're leaving him in the VFL because they cannot identify another player in that team that needs to come out in favour of Paddy Dow. Now, if Paddy Dow was a really clever goal sneak type forward, you could probably make a case that he should come in for a Corey Durden or a Matthew Owies or a Motlop, Jesse Motlop. But he's not that type of player. And he hasn't been playing that style of football in the VFL either. He's very much been in the midfield. And even Will Setterfield's been playing really consistent football Now, he was only included yesterday as a medical sub. So you can't play them all. You can only play your best available 22.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that the selection committee, and obviously the coaching staff are going to have their say in all that, they are saying that we believe that Will Setterfield and Paddy Dow are not in our best 22.
Yep.
And that's why I don't think that they're getting a game. They seem to be a bit soft. They seem to be a bit too easily pushed off the ball, maybe. Not tough enough. And I think that's clearly Voss is after a certain style of player and they don't fit the mould.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can read it. So there you go, Rash. Thanks very much for your question. I hope we've addressed it enough. Tell us what you think, maybe. Come back to us with your thoughts. And anyone else who's got a thought on Paddy Dow can do the same thing. But without taking up the whole show on Paddy Dow, let's get on with the rest of it. Now, I thought the key position forwards were fantastic yesterday. Charlie Curnow really turned it on. He was quiet the week before, and you could just tell that under the Marvel Stadium. I did make this case during the week that I thought Carlton would win because we're back on favourable ground. We love Marvel Stadium. We can play our style of football better there than anywhere else. You got the roof over our heads. You got no weather to consider. You got 40,000 screaming fans right behind you. All of the peripherals were favourable to us in that sense. So if we were going to turn it around, it was always going to be yesterday.
Yeah, it's a happy hunting ground all of a sudden. It certainly hasn't been for so many years. You think we're going to play more games at Marvel now, Vince? Do you think the AFL will throw some money at the club and they'll take it? Sorry, Marvel Stadium management.
You can't just say, I want to play a certain amount of games at this stadium or that stadium because you just happen to play a bit better there at the moment. What happens if that changes and all of a sudden you play better football at the MCG? So I don't think that's really coming into it. I think there'll always be at least 5, if not 6 games a year at Marvel. Because the amount of teams that we play that you're going to get more people at than you can fit at Marvel would only be at the most 4. So who are you going to get? I mean, Marvel can hold, what, 50,000, 55,000?
Yeah.
So how many crowds of more than 55 are you going to get at the MCG?
Crowds aren't.
You get Richmond, Essendon, Collingwood, and maybe a Geelong or a Hawthorn or someone like that. Maybe. So I can't see us getting more than 55,000 at the MCG against any other sides.
So based on the current stadium deal of 6 and 5,
yeah,
do you think no one's trying to get out of the MCG, obviously. Do you think from a negotiating perspective, the club's been very coy and not saying anything whenever those questions have been asked? Do you think from a negotiating perspective, they may look at playing more at the MCG or stick with the 6 at Marvel and 5 at the MCG preferred option?
I think they'll look at the financials. The club tends to make a case based on what's better for it financially. And if it pays us better to have more games at the MCGs, that's what we'll push for. Regardless of how we play.
It will not pay better for the MCG.
Well, it all depends on the stadium deals that you get. So I don't have an issue with having half a dozen games at Marvel and only 5 at the MCG because they're home games, of course. We also get our fair share of away games at both of those venues. And I don't know. I just think that in fact, sometimes when we play interstate teams at the MCG, it can feel quite empty and cold and sort of too big for the occasion. When we play a Port Adelaide or when we play a Fremantle, and if it happens to be at the MCG, which has happened in recent years, It just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right at all.
So you've answered my question. They have scheduled games against teams such as West Coast, Port Adelaide.
West Coast is another one, yeah.
A number
Adelaide
of teams
as well. Yep.
Yes, a number of teams at the MCG because of the stadium deal with Docklands that they want the better games.
Yep.
So therefore, teams that would be two Victorian teams or other sorts of teams. Carlton will play at home quite often at Docklands opposed to the MCG. Look, to answer your question, I know you think it's a financial, and you're right. I think that's where I was going with my comment. I think it's up to the supporters. Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
And I have a dream. It won't happen. That in the members' survey, some of the key salient points that members actually care about, like where they play home games, and the blend of games, should be surveyed. And that along with the financial, I'm not saying money doesn't make the world go round, need to be considered for where we play home games.
In other words, it should be the will of the members as to where they want to play.
A percentage of that decision needs to be. Now, if you took
how many surveys will it take to get the answer that they want?
How do you word the question to make it
exactly
the answer they want? Yeah.
Look, I think the problem with most of these surveys and what have you is that we're not actually told the real results of what's come out of them.
You don't even get the election vote numbers, let alone the vote survey numbers, right?
The only time we'll get told the results is if the results come out the way they want. If the results don't come out the way they want, we'll be told nothing at all, probably.
Yes.
So, look, there's always going to be a percentage of our games held at Marvel Stadium, and I think that's a better venue to be playing sides like GWS, Gold Coast,
no disagreement, but
Brisbane Lions.
That's not always where they schedule them because.
Yeah. No, but one of the reasons that they would have a Carlton versus West Coast at the MCG or a Carlton versus Fremantle or Port Adelaide or whatever is because those teams also need to be given at least a couple of opportunities a year to play on the MCG. And those clubs have often complained that they don't get enough games at the MCG prior to a final series.
Yeah,
and I think you'll find that the AFL has said, yes, you're probably right. So therefore, even if it's a Carlton versus Fremantle game, I think we had one. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, I can't remember the opponents, but those interstate type opponents, we've played most of them at Marvel for the majority of the time, but occasionally you'll get one where it's scheduled at the MCG.
Yep.
So, yeah. I think
anyway, the whole fixture and draw, everything's compromised. Everything's just
we noticed another 3 rounds of the fixture come out during the week. What did you make of those? Just to refresh your memory.
Yep.
I'll just get this up quickly. So we were given rounds 20, 21, and 22. Now, the only one left for them to schedule is the very last round, round 23, before yet another bye, and then the finals will start. Yep. So round 20, we were given Adelaide versus Carlton at the Adelaide Oval at a very unusual time of 7:30 p.m. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time. In Adelaide at 7 o'clock, of course, half an hour behind. But that's 5 minutes after the Geelong versus Western Bulldogs game starts at 7:25. Can you understand that? What is that? What is going on there?
Yeah, they have one on Foxtel and one on Channel 7, I think. That's how it works.
Yeah, but every time we've had 2 games on a Saturday night, they both start at the same time. Why 5 minutes apart this time?
I don't know what the 5. Look, I don't know what the 5.
I mean, not that I think it's going to make a massive difference, but why all of a sudden is it 7:30 and not 7:25?
That's a good question. I don't know, but
someone's had a brain fade. I was going to use another 4-letter word starting with F then, but Someone's had a brain fade there or what? 7:30 p.m. Anyway, so what do you think of that? That'll be a night game on a Saturday night against the Adelaide Crows. A game we should win. We would expect to win, you would think.
Not a big deal, really. The game was going to be played in Adelaide, so that's a pretty decent result, I would have thought.
Mm. To be honest, I was expecting it to be a twilight game in Adelaide, but they ended up scheduling St Kilda versus Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium as the twilight game that particular day. Another strange decision from mine, but anyway. So that's round 20. Round 21, which is the first weekend of August, we have a big, big game against the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba, and they've scheduled it for Sunday afternoon, 3:20 p.m. This is a good time slot, I would have thought.
Well, I mean, it's not really going to impact any unless you're travelling up there to watch it.
The games either side of it are North Melbourne versus Sydney at Marvel.
Yep.
Hardly a blockbuster.
It's a Channel 7 game, right?
And then you've got West Coast Eagles, who are second last on the ladder, versus Adelaide, who are fourth last or fifth last, at Optus Stadium, which is the twilight game, 4:10 p.m. start.
Yeah.
So it's clearly the match of the round. Brisbane versus Carlton, two top 4 teams or top 5 teams.
Yeah.
It's the right time slot, isn't it? It was either going to be that or the Saturday night, in my opinion. But they, rather than do 2 Saturday nights in a row with Carlton, they've chosen to go with a Sunday afternoon there.
Yep.
And the last of the 3 was and is a Saturday night the following weekend. So we are back to Saturday night. Melbourne versus Carlton. Last year's premiers versus this year's premiers. Well, that's a bit presumptive, but anyway. 7:25 p.m. at the MCG. Big game. Huge.
Absolutely. I would have liked to Saturday afternoon.
Lex Gawn will be back by then, but a lot of our own injured players will be back by then too, you would think. Von Wiedering will be back, and, McGovern's got a chance of being back. What's the other one? Zach Williams has even got a chance of being back.
Oh, maybe. I would. That's going to be a tough. Yeah, really?
Well, you never know. They're all expected. I mean, even guys like David Cunningham and Caleb Marchbank are expected to be back.
Marchbank could possibly back, yeah.
I think Marchbank's the most iffy of the lot, because with all of these knee injuries he's had, he might have to be put in cotton wool. But anyway, so what do you think of that one? 7:25 on the Saturday night.
Yeah, pretty good. I would have liked a Saturday afternoon, but that's a still a good time. Yeah,
me too. I would have liked the Saturday afternoon. They've gone with Adelaide. See, this is what I don't understand. Adelaide versus North Melbourne at 2:10 p.m. on the Saturday afternoon in Adelaide. Fourth last versus last.
Oh, it's a TV. This is a TV thing. It's not about people going.
Because Melbourne versus Carlton is going to be more the blockbuster of the week, they want that to be a Saturday night, do they?
Absolutely. It's all TV based. That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough. And then, of course, round 23, which they haven't scheduled, we're going to be playing a home game against Collingwood. Where do you want to see that take place and when? Well, it's going to be at the MCG, but what day and what time?
Well, it doesn't really matter because there's that week off, right, between finals.
Yep.
So barring a catastrophe.
And the week before, we're going to be playing on a Saturday night, and Collingwood will be playing on the Sunday afternoon against Sydney. So unlikely to be a Friday night, you'd think, because that'll only give Collingwood 5 days.
Yeah, I would have thought it'd be...
maybe a Saturday afternoon might be the way to go there.
Well, it'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I got a feeling it'll either be Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. One or the other.
Saturday night?
No.
Okay.
We've already had a night game against them, haven't we?
No, it was an afternoon game.
Oh, it was an afternoon game. Oh, well, then maybe it will be a Saturday night. I still think that the Carlton-Collingwood games are better off being played during the day. Any other thoughts from any of our viewers? Oh, Robert Frischčić. Is that right? That sounds Croatian to me.
That's the one.
So when is the Carlton and Adelaide game on? Date and time, please. Well, I did just go through that, but I'll give it to you again. Was it Robert? 7:30 p.m.
Eastern time.
That's Eastern time. So Adelaide time would be 7 p.m. on Saturday, the 30th of July.
And confirming.
And yes, it is Croatian. There you go. I've got it right, Rob.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
so there you go. 7:30 on Saturday, the 30th of July for you, mate.
Yep.
If you're planning to go to Adelaide, it's got a terrific little supporters group there, and they all get together before the game at I think it's a Cathedral Hotel. It's a walking distance from the ground, and we have a good time. Anyway, so there you go. That's the forthcoming fixture. Now, just getting back to yesterday's game, Stephen, we haven't done what?
3, 2, 1s.
The votes.
Or 1, 2, 3.
The votes. So give us your 3, 2, and 1 for the week.
Walsh, Doherty, and Curnow.
So 3 to Walsh?
No, the other way.
Oh, Curnow, you're saying is the best on ground?
Yeah.
So you've given 3 votes to Curnow, Charlie Curnow.
Yep.
For his 9 kicks, 4 goals too. Took 5 marks. And that's best on ground. And who did you give seconds to? Doherty.
Yep.
So Doherty gets 2 votes and Walsh gets 1.
Yes. Although we all marked Walsh hard because you just expect him to get 30 possessions every week, right? So.
Well, he got 40 this time. He got 40.
Exactly. Yeah. 19
kicks and 21 hand passes. Took 6 marks. But the most impressive part, I thought, was, I think he had 7 clearances, 11 inside 50s, gained well over 500 metres for the team through his possessions. To me, that was an almost complete performance, short of not kicking any goals. I gave him best on ground.
Yeah,
I gave him 3. I gave Doherty 2. And you're right. I gave Curnow 1 vote.
We just had the order. We had the orders.
Impact. Yeah, same 3, but different order. Yeah. And look, there were that many other players that you could give a vote to, or at least give a special mention to. There's a whole host of them. The special mention I want to give is to Jack Newnes. I think he's actually now really establishing himself as a regular player. Same with Lockie O'Brien, and same with young Matthew Cottrell. Yeah, he kicked a couple of beautiful goals, and there's one thing about him is he'll run all day for you. There's no doubt about that. I think that's what Voss likes too. He's a goer, and even if he makes mistakes, he goes back in, he tries again. So you got to hand it to him. He's really earned some respect, I think, in the more recent weeks that he's played. He's often been dropped and then made medical sub. Whenever he comes on, he gives it his all. I think we all like that type of player, don't we? The one that you'd say, without any shadow of doubt, is a real trier. Gives it his all.
Would you say there's a bit of Dennis Armfield about him, without the hair colour being different, obviously? Would you just say there's a bit of that?
Slightly different hair colour to Dennis Armfield. But, yeah, I mean, I think he could very well develop that sort of cult hero type status at the club and one of the favourites of the cheer squad and people like that. Kathy Kirkpatrick. Hi, Kathy. I think Cottrell is really cementing his place in the team. I agree with you. Just shows what a little trust and belief by the coaches can do for a player. Yep, I agree with that too. His improvement is amazing. Yes, I think that's part of it, that the coaches have backed him in and they've said, look, we're going to keep putting our faith in you. Even if you get dropped and made medical sub, just come on. If you're going to come on, give it your best. And I think he's done well. Skinnier version of Mitch Robinson. Yeah, probably a smarter one too.
No off-field
which
indiscretions
wasn't
that we know
exactly blessed
about.
with a lot of brain capacity. What's that?
Yeah. No off-field indiscretions that we know about anyway, is it?
No. Well, look, and don't get me wrong. I think we all love Mitch Robinson for all the right reasons. He's now I think he's just turned 33 this month. He's over at Brisbane and now starting to struggle to hold his place in the side. So he's probably hoping that Brisbane, put their best foot forward this year because who knows whether he's going to get another contract or another opportunity after the end of this year.
He's had a good career though, Vince. You've got to give.
He's had a very good career, especially after he left Carlton and went there. He's made every post a winner.
Yeah. The Carlton culture just wasn't quite right at that time, was it?
No, it wasn't. No. All right, so there's our 3, 2, and 1 each. And we've of course got St Kilda next week. Any thoughts on that game, Steve? Now, they've had their third loss in a row, St Kilda.
Yeah. So
Bad loss last night to Sydney Swans by 51 points. I mean, 83-32. They only kicked 4 goals, 8 for the game.
You could look at St Kilda as many teams and see poor performances. It's just and teams bounce back. They get the blowtorch put on them and they have a real focus during the week and players forced to lift their intensity. Whether it takes 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks, St Kilda aren't as bad as they're playing. Well, I mean, we need to certainly take them very seriously. And if the good St Kilda turn up, if it happens to be the good St Kilda that turn up, then definitely we're going to be in for a tough game. I wouldn't think it's going to be an easy game.
Yeah, look, I do expect it'll be a desperate St Kilda, I think, next week because already they're out of the 8 now. If you have a look at the ladder, St Kilda's dropped down to 10th now. Now they are only percentage out of the 8, but it's a decent 13%. So the Western Bulldogs have now snuck in, and Richmond have slipped out as well. So Western Bulldogs are in the 8 on 8 wins with a percentage of 120.9. Richmond and St Kilda are also on 32 points, 8 wins. But Richmond's percentage 116.2 and St Kilda a lowly 107.3. And then it falls away to Gold Coast and Port Adelaide, both on 7 wins from 14 games. They've still got some chance, but geez, they'd want to string a lot of wins together between now and round 23. Gold Coast and Port Adelaide still possible, so you wouldn't put the line through them yet. But I think after that, then Adelaide on 5 wins from 14, and GWS and Hawthorn on 4 wins, and then it falls away. Essendon on 3 wins, West Coast 2 wins, and North Melbourne on 1 are in last position. But so I think we can safely put the line through the bottom 6. But the top 12 have all still got some chance of making it. But St Kilda, if they lose to us next week, they're putting themselves in a really precarious position. And so they're going to be desperate. There's no doubt about that.
There's a lot going on. You've got Alistair Clarkson nipping at the heels there, whether you like it or not, of Brett Ratton.
Do you reckon? Do you really think so?
No, yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that St Kilda could sack Brett Ratton if they didn't make the finals?
Yeah.
Do you reckon they could?
Could or would?
Well, do you think they would?
Yes.
You think they will?
If they didn't
make the finals.
If they had Clarkson locked in.
Yeah, is Clarkson going to go to a club like St Kilda?
He wants to stay. I think he wants to stay close to home. From what I can, what's being said, and I think he would definitely go to St Kilda. Yes, for sure.
Be interesting times if they did that, sacking Brett, who used to be an assistant to Clarkson, of course, at Hawthorn. And it's almost like sacking the pupil and bringing in the master, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, I'm not some journo, but I have heard that they've already he has spoken.
He's been sounded out already, has he,
yes.
Clarkson?
Yeah.
Now, the very fact that they would even approach Clarkson, if that's true, tells you, even if they're just sounding him out about his future, tells you that they've got some question marks about the future of Ratton.
Well, it's all about the grass is greener on the other side, and you think the other coach Clarkson is the ghost or the spectre, isn't he, amongst many coaches that are performing, correct?
Yeah. What about the possibility if Port Adelaide don't make the finals, and they're only just hanging in there? Like, they've only just fallen in tonight against Gold Coast by a couple of points. Could you potentially see Clarkson go back to the club that he was an assistant coach for quite a few years under Mark Williams, Choco Williams?
Also coached at Central Districts in the Sandfall.
Yeah.
Coached in that golden era that Central Districts had. I think they won.
Could you see David Kosh and his board saying, Kenny, it's been a great 10 years. Thanks very much for your service. But it's time for us to have a change.
I think Hinckley's been a dead man walking for a few years now. The expectations of Port Adelaide have been very, very high, and it's just he's one bad season away from. I don't think the credits in the bank.
Well, he's been there for 10 years, and he's never got him into a grand final. He's had 2 preliminary finals. The first one was against Hawthorn, and they almost knocked them off. I think they failed by 4 or 5 points.
Yeah,
but that was in his first year or his second year. It was either his first or second year. It might have been 20. Was it 2013 or 14 that they almost knocked them off at the MCG? I can't remember. Right. But I think it was 2013. But look, it's 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, since then, he hasn't got them to any better than another preliminary final last year, which they got comprehensively trounced by the Western Bulldogs. At home in Adelaide.
He's been a good coach, but not many coaches get 10 years
without making a grand final, at least.
Of opportunity, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, it wouldn't surprise me if they missed out on the finals, that they could say to Ken Hinckley, thanks very much, but we're going to go with a new direction under a new coach. What about Gold Coast? If they don't make the finals, they've never made the finals. Does Stuart Dew get another contract because of their slightly improved performance this year? Or if they don't make the finals, do they just say, that's it, enough?
I think
we're going to go for Clarkson or we're going to go for Hinckley.
At the start of the year, you might have said that, but I think you're starting to see some, I wouldn't say green shoots, but you're seeing some sustained growth, aren't you, right? You're seeing, I don't know. I'm seeing that they're competitive.
But isn't that because of the fact that they've got some top draft picks like Matthew Rowell and Noah Anderson and Isaac Rankin?
Most of them left though too. Most of them left.
No, but they're still in the team. They're still in the team, right?
Lukosius re-signed.
Lukosius is re-signed. I think part of the improvement is because of the quality of player they've been able to recruit via their draft picks. Now, should Stuart Dew be given the full credit for all of that? I don't know.
I think the problem is the culture and all of that, all of those elements. I think they've started to address that and unite everybody, and they're all staying the course a bit more, opposed to previously where you had your Tom Lynch, Prestia, all these players jumping ship left, right, and centre. I don't think.
I'll tell you one thing, Steve. If you had a list of all of the Gold Coast players that have gone elsewhere since starting at the Gold Coast, you'd have a premiership side, all right?
Maybe not Jack Martin, but anyway.
Well, maybe Jack Martin would be an emergency, but you're talking about players like Stephen May, Dion Prestia, Jager O'Meara, Tom Lynch. There's a whole host of them.
Problem was always going to be with all these franchises. They're all starting up at the same age bracket. To keep the list together was always going to be. GWS had the same issues. Very, very difficult.
Interesting stuff. All right. Well, so you think it's going to be a tough game, and you think St Kilda's going to give us one heck of a fright, do you?
No. If anybody said, oh, they think St Kilda will bounce back, they're just guessing. Well, this is pure guesswork here, right? This is all I got a feeling. It's all emotion. I mean, logically, we should win by 10 goals, right? Logically. But if they're based on pure form in the last 3 weeks, they lost to Essendon, they're insipid, correct?
Yep.
I don't care if Essendon had their best game at the moment, they shouldn't beat a top 8 side.
Well, Essendon's gone on to lose to West Coast, who had previously only had 1 win. And you know, West Coast played well, but, geez, Essendon played poorly.
So what I'm trying to say is you put a bit of pressure on Essendon and they're not going to be able to play 4 quarters. St Kilda couldn't even put any pressure on them at all.
No, that's
right. There's something not right upstairs there with St Kilda at the moment. Now, whether they go out and do 10-pin bowling or go and do a bonding session or whatever they need to do to rekindle things or go camping for a night or something, I don't know. Whatever they do, these trendy modern days, right? If they do that and find a way to get those players up and about, we need to be on our game. But if not, if it's the same St Kilda, we should kill them.
Well, you've got to have a look. If you have a look at in recent weeks, you have to go back to the 14th of May. So we're talking about halfway through May. What's that, 6 weeks ago? They had a 10-point win against Geelong at Marvel.
Yeah, they played well that night.
And they really played well. And look, they came back. Geelong held a lead that was around 4 goals in the third quarter. And a game-high lead of 4 goals at that stage.
I turned the TV off.
Then St Kilda went on and kicked something like 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah.
And eventually won by 10 points in the last.
It was one of those where you turn the TV off.
Yeah, go back to it within 25 minutes, and all of a sudden you go, what? But since that win against Geelong, right, they then had a 21-point win against Adelaide Crows in Adelaide. Okay, nothing fantastic, only 21 points against the lowly team, but on their home deck, you take that. Then they won handsomely over North Melbourne by 53 points at Marvel. Okay, so pretty good month of May. Since then, they had a bye in the first week of June, and they've since lost to Brisbane by 21 points at the Gabba. Okay, you'd probably forgive them for that.
They had a lot of injuries in that game.
And Brisbane's going to be a strong side at the Gabba every day of the week.
Well, that was a good effort. Yep.
Yeah, reasonable effort, but nevertheless, they lost that game. That started the rot. And then they lost to Essendon, that one last week, 35 points on a Friday night.
That was the Danny Frawley game too, which was
the Danny Frawley game that they
were. Speak to any St Kilda supporter, that was the players really let the club down there. Yeah, and then yesterday they go to Sydney and get absolutely thrashed, 83-32. So a 51-point loss. So something's gone amiss. The wheels have fallen off there. I'm not sure why, but they are capable of coming back from that. They've proven that against Geelong, that they can beat top sides. They're a Jekyll and Hyde. If you look at that, remember that game up in Cairns that they sold? The game where they didn't play with a share and they played with a cake of soap. Yeah, that's right. That game, and there was the Essendon game. Both of them were just. I think there was a game early in the season as well, maybe round 1 or 2. Round 2, they beat Fremantle in Perth. That's right. Sorry. Yep. The round 1, I think it was maybe. Anyway, round 1 they lost to Collingwood. Yeah, that's right. That was the game where they just didn't turn up. And mind you, people thought Collingwood were a bottom 4 side at that point. Yep. So yeah. Anyway, but then they came back and knocked over Fremantle in Perth, and then the week after that, they knocked over Richmond at Marvel Stadium by 33 points. Absolutely. So this is where they're. And then they smacked Hawthorn by 69 points at the MCG. Correct. So their good is good, but their bad's very ordinary, isn't it? Yeah, and that's a mental thing. So anyway, that you've illustrated my point perfectly. When they're on, they're very good.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, the game that they sold, as you said, up at Kazali Stadium in Cairns, they lost by a point to Port Adelaide. So costly. They might have made money out of it, but it was a costly loss.
That was
certainly in the scheme of where they are on the ladder right now. That was.
I think both sides kicked about 10 goals between them or something that night. It was
they
awful.
Kicked 4-18 St Kilda, and Port Adelaide kicked 5-13. So they won by a point. 4-18 to 5-13. How's that for a scoreline?
As a real wet weather Moorabbin in July sort of game.
Exactly.
You know, not back in the 80s. Remember they used to water the centre square there?
Like Moorabbin. You were playing Moorabbin on a beautiful day. There hadn't been any rain for a week and a half, and all of a sudden you turn up there and it's an absolute quagmire.
That glue pot with that football mud smell.
They used to water it. The mud would just stick to the players' legs for the whole game.
And
they went on weighing 80 kilograms and they came off weighing 90.
The centre square.
10 kilos of mud.
The centre square is black, and you just see these white little circle painted in.
Yeah. That was a classic. So anyway, what based on assuming the teams are pretty similar, what would you think? What's your prediction for the Carlton St Kilda game on Friday night?
Look, you think they should cut the Blues should win by probably 5 or 6 goals? I would have thought at least.
By the way, it's on New Year's Day, new financial year that is, Friday the 1st of July. So time to cash in. Yeah, look, I think Carlton should. And they're not St Kilda play Marvel well, but we're playing it really well at the moment. Yeah, I would expect this if we can beat Fremantle there by 5 goals. I'd expect to beat St Kilda by 8. I think we should be able to really trounce them.
You think this is horse racing where it's just about sectional times and everything, Vince? It doesn't work that way. It's all
I know that.
It's all about
that. But I just think that we're ready to. What yesterday showed me is that when we put the foot on the accelerator, we can really crush sides. I just thought we just systematically broke down Fremantle, and they had no answers. And when we eventually cracked them, they hemorrhaged. And if we're good enough to play like that against the top 4 side, we can beat anybody on our day. If we're on like we were on yesterday, we can beat anyone.
Yep.
No question in my mind. Whether it's Brisbane, whether it's Melbourne, whether it's Geelong, we can beat anybody. We've got the talent.
Fremantle, all the other top half a dozen teams will probably be thinking the same thing, and it's who's on for more often, longer, at the right time of the year when the whips are cracking.
Exactly right. All right. Any other issues you want to quickly discuss before we call it a night? AFL type issues?
What's been going on? So I suppose that the send-off rule, that the people call for that every 2 or 3 years. I mean, it was just
What did you think of the Tom Stewart bump on Dion Prestia yesterday in the Geelong-Richmond game? Do you think Tom Stewart should be given a lesson by the match review? In fact, I think they've sent it straight to the tribunal. So that sounds pretty serious when the match review office sends it straight to the tribunal.
Yeah, he'll get probably 4 or 5 weeks, and it's all about example of the lower leagues.
I'll make a prediction.
Yep.
I don't think you'll get more than 3 at the most.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
you're a lawyer, are you?
I also think that what Chris Scott said in his press conference was basically a strategy of, look, we can't deny this. We can't hide behind it. We can't say, no, it didn't happen. We can't defend it. It's there for all to see. He went past the ball and kept going and had high contact on Prestia, who was basically out cold after that and clearly concussed. They're better, and I think the strategy was, let's come out and say,
legal counsel,
that you're all apologetic, you're sympathetic, you can't believe what you did, and Tom Stewart's the morally wonderful person, da-da-da-da-da. And I think they're hoping for a lenient sentence based on all of that sort of admission of guilt. It's almost like pleading guilty and saying, okay, throw the book at me if you really want to. I don't think they will throw the book at him. I think the most he'll get 3 weeks. Wouldn't even surprise me if he gets 2, but I'd say 3. And if he does get 3, that's a really big boost for Carlton, because the next 3 weeks we play St Kilda, then we play West Coast in Perth, and then Geelong.
Yeah.
So if Geelong are missing Stewart, who's a vital, vital player in their defence, that's a massive win for us.
Apart from all of that posturing and all of the community, moral high, pillar of
moral
community, all of that. Look at what he does with the kids and visits people in hospital and all of the lovely stuff that people don't see, and the greater Geelong community and all of that stuff, South Coast community and junior footy and lovely. But at the end of the day, you hit someone, all that's nice. That might stop it being 5 weeks to 4, maybe. But at the end of the day, mathematically, you bumped someone in that particular manner, and the medical outcome was that they were knocked out cold. The letter of the law, it's 5 weeks, and maybe on grounds otherwise, you maybe give him a discount, just purely because he's not Toby Green, as an example, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, yes, regardless of him having a good rap,
should a player's tell me something? Should a player's character and what he does off the field and how he behaves, or how he conducts himself as a citizen, if you like, should that come into it at all when assessing what a player has done and what his actions have been on the field?
So that's in the sentencing.
As you pointed out, versus Toby Green or Jordan De Goey. How much are we judging people based on their character rather than the action itself?
So the action has to be primarily, it doesn't matter which team, who it is, player
whether they're
X,
a rap bag or whether they're,
player X, let's call them, not lawyer X, player X, right? There, okay. Then it's okay. So we have found them guilty. Then in sentencing, you may give them 10 or 20% discount at best.
Yeah.
But I don't think you go first to 3 weeks. Look,
I'm going to bet you a Tats Lotto ticket that he doesn't get more than 3 weeks. There you
go. Okay. There you go. Yeah. Well, look, and we'll never know what the process really is.
Or what little phone calls and little discussions behind closed doors might have taken place beforehand. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Absolutely.
Say no more.
Yeah, and look, this is where the whole tribunal, where do we start with that? Hey, where's the consistency there? Some of the things we've seen. Anyway, I shake my head. So that's that one. Now the argument was, and it's just unfortunate that Prestia then can't play.
Yep.
And happens to be probably one of Richmond's most influential players.
Yeah.
Because when he went down against us was a perfect example. In round 1, and when he's been back in their team, how much better they've been. So he's got knocked out. If Stewart had knocked out a first-year player or someone that wasn't anywhere near as good, you wouldn't be hearing about this red card idea. It's just purely it's a perfect storm. You've got a player that's knocked out a player that's now basically taken their most influential player off the park.
Yep.
And all they're going to get is weeks for it, but the team loses the game. It couldn't have worked out worse. If Richmond won the game, no one would have said anything.
True.
So that whole red card thing, I don't think we do that. I think AFL doesn't need to do that. I believe that if you did that, you're going to start to get into more rule changes and more crazy stuff, if it isn't already crazy enough as it is, and interpretations and people with power to do things beyond maybe what's or make mistakes.
Yep. All right. Well, it's been a big show, and thank you very much for your thoughts and your opinions, Stevie. And have we got any other comments or questions that we need to air on the show tonight, or not?
The only one was Peter Vlahos has said the sin
should
bin.
use a 5-minute sin bin instead, just like the NRL. Well, that's a good idea. It's certainly worth discussing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that we should have similar things to soccer with the yellow card, red card scenario?
No, definitely
Sending
not.
people off the ground if they've done something really bad?
How are you going to – this is going to get more no, leave it. Just leave it. There's no need. It's going to create more problems. These things happen once every 3 or 4 or 5 years. Situations like this, I don't think you need to change the rule for it. Otherwise, you're getting back into these, stand rules, umpire remonstration, and all of that. We don't want any more changes. What do you think, Vince?
Yeah, I've often wondered about if in a grand final, a team targets, a star player of the opposition and, literally irons them out. A bit like how Mark Yates tried to do that against Dermot Brereton in 1989. Now, if you're successful in doing that, now, even if he gets 10 weeks the following year, who cares? If they win the flag because they've knocked out the star player of the opposition, that's all that matters, isn't it?
Well, Alistair Lynch, not many of those punches connected, but if you remember him with the Wakeland in the goal square
2004, yeah.
That's right, yep.
Yeah, well, they ended up losing that game, of course, but again, all it takes is someone to, target an opposition star, and if they happen to get them and get them really good, they can stuff the opposition completely. I remember in 1993 when we played Essendon, I remember Mil Hanna, who was firing at that stage, he got really heavily hit. I can't remember who hit him. It might have been Dean Wallace or someone like that.
I think it was Dean Wallace.
So, and he was just not the same for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
In 1982, Richmond were going after some of our players. Ken Hunter got just about poleaxed. And could hardly remember any of the game, even though he played a really good game when he came on.
Barn broke Southby's jaw.
There's 1973.
73,
they wanted revenge on 1972. So, Neil Barn went berserk.
Yeah.
He whacked Southby, he whacked Nichols, he whacked all sorts of players, and they won the game.
Yeah.
So, when you think about it from that point of view, it does make a case for, in an obvious targeting situation, to give someone a red card and off the ground you go.
Gee, that's 50 years ago, isn't it? It's amazing we were talking about
you have one less player on the ground.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's 50 years ago. Can you believe it?
It was 50 years ago. Well, 72 was 50 years
ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I think there are grounds for it, but as usual, they'll only do it when it's too late and someone's, made an obvious example of why we need to bring the rule in. But I think they've stuffed around with the rules of the game way too much already as it is for the time being. I just wish they'd leave it alone and stop stuffing around with it. But I'll tell you one thing I do believe will be better for the game if they do introduce it, is not to have so many of these damn score reviews. I'm sick of them. I think a lot of people are sick of them. I thought it was originally meant to be just
for a howler
used on the goal line, and now they're bringing it back to see whether someone got a fingernail to it from where they kicked it 30 or 40 metres out. So I think that's going way too far. That should just be purely up to field umpires, and even goal umpires now. They're too afraid to make a decision about anything without going to the score review. Just too much of it. What I think should happen is if a team feels that either a field umpire or goal umpire or even a boundary umpire has made the wrong decision, that team's captain can ask for a review of that decision. If you remember, for example, I think it was a Geelong-Brisbane game at Cardinia Park recently where there was clearly a holding the ball in the goal square to Brisbane, and the umpire didn't pay it.
That was round 2,
and Geelong ended up holding on to a less than a goal win. I think they won by 3 points or 2 points or whatever. Now, if Brisbane had the opportunity to say, we want that decision reviewed, and a team of people up the top have a look at that bit of footage, they would clearly have given that holding the ball. Now, if a team has got up to 3 reviews in a match, that's all I think that they should be entitled to. And, you know, I can see matches happening where they don't even need to use any of the reviews. But if they feel aggrieved by a decision like that can turn an entire game, they should be able to have one per, maybe even make it one per quarter.
Yep.
All right? I don't care, but it should be something like they have in tennis and in cricket, where they can have decisions reviewed. And if they happen to be right about those decisions, they can keep that review until such time as they ask for a review that they get wrong. Then they lose that review, like in tennis. In tennis, you've got 3 reviews per set. But if each time you ask for the review to happen, you're in the right, you continue to earn the right to keep your 3. So I hope I've explained myself right, but that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I think if a team feels like the umpire's made a clear bad decision, they should ask for a review of that decision. And then people can go up and have a look at the video footage, and they'll probably have 3 or 4 different angles and can make a proper decision on what the umpire may have made a mistake with down below. I think they don't want to bring that in because they don't want to embarrass umpires. And they're having a hard enough time holding on to umpires as it is and attracting umpires. So they probably fear that having a review system like that may embarrass or shame umpires, and therefore that they'll feel like, oh, geez, I'm being highlighted here. You know, the spotlight's on me because I've made a bad decision.
That's it's a long way from the days where there was nothing. There were no reviews. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I would scrap the whole score review system until and just give each side an opportunity to ask for a review if they feel that either the field umpire got it wrong or the goal umpire got it wrong or whatever. That's how I think it should work.
How did we last without all of this stuff? How did we actually enjoy?
Before they had all this score review system, goal umpires were forced to make a decision. Was it a goal or was it a point? Was it touched or not touched? And whichever way they went with it, whether it was right or wrong, we just lived with the decision. That was it.
But that was like any decision that was iffy, and that the conjecture and the debate about all of that was probably fun, right? That was yeah. That were the
sometimes a ball is kicked, way away from the goal umpire, and he doesn't know whether it's gone through for a point or out of bounds, for example. But they had to make a decision. Now, they might consult with the boundary umpire, and eventually, between the two of them, right or wrong, they made a decision. True?
Yeah.
Now everyone's damn scared to make any decisions, and they keep sending it up to the video referee.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Yep.
It just stops the momentum of the game. It puts another interruption into the system. It's just no wonder people are not going anymore. That's all I can say. No wonder people are staying away in droves. They're just making it too hard and too unattractive. But anyway, at least Carlton's making it attractive. We certainly are playing a very exciting brand of football. It's great to see so many Carlton supporters go out and watch the game. Do you remember what the crowd was yesterday? Did you happen to catch that?
Didn't catch the crowd.
Neither did I. Did anyone find out how many people? One of our viewers there maybe they can tell us how many people were there yesterday. I would have been surprised if it wasn't 40,000.
I think it would be high 30s. It's amazing the amount of supporters that maybe maybe wouldn't have gone week in, week out for the last sort of decade or so. Suddenly recapturing their passion, which is good.
You mean fair weather supporters? We don't have those, do we?
Every team does.
I wouldn't have thought so. Not at Carlton. They turn up every week.
Oh, yeah.
Don't they? Anyway, everyone, thanks very much for joining us tonight. We look forward to another show next Sunday night at 8 o'clock as we wrap up the Carlton St Kilda game, which, of course, is taking place on Friday night at Marvel Stadium under the roof, 7:50 p.m. Get out there if you can. Don't forget to watch the Jumper Punch on Tuesday night, on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Big episode coming up this week with Rocco and Paul and Mars. And, of course, Joe and Chris Beach will be back with you on the Wednesday edition of In the Blue Corner as they have a look at the potential ins and outs of the Carlton team as we prepare to take on St Kilda. So that's on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And Stevie and I will be back with you next Sunday night at 8 o'clock to wrap up the weekend's footy. All right. Thanks very much for joining us. Until then, it's bye for now. Go Blues.
Go Blues.